Hello again, my fellow Jeti users, and today's video is about getting speakouts of telemetry values at different timed intervals. Now, yesterday I posted a video of how to get an automated speakout of one telemetry value at intervals of X number of seconds after a particular telemetry value had been exceeded. In that case, it was after you've used up so many milliamp hours, then it would call out the used milliamp hours every so many seconds after that. And that prompted a question from somebody. Could the system give a speak out of the vario every 3 seconds, the height every 20 seconds, and the motor current every 60 seconds? Well, yes and no. Technically I can solve it, but you run into some major issues there. First of all, vario every 3 seconds. Well, it takes it longer than 3 seconds to say vario x feet per second. That's used up your 3 seconds, so immediately it goes on to the next announcement. So all you can ever hear is vario x feet per second, vario x feet per second, vario x feet per second, ad infinitum. You'll never get to hear any of the other announcements. So you've got to consider, do you really need to be told the feet or meters, whatever, per second from the vario? If you've got the vario tones going up and down, do you really need to know the number? Is this information overload? And do you need to know it every 3 seconds? So technically it can be done, but it just destroys everything else. I would suggest you put it on something like a little spring-loaded switch, so you can just speak it out when you really need to know it. The next problem is wanted height at 20 seconds and current at 60 seconds. Well, every third time it's going to read out the height, it's going to conflict with the readout of the current, because every 320 seconds is 60 seconds. And the Jeti transmitter does not cue the announcements. It just gives you one of them and ignores the others. So every third time it comes around, it's going to announce either the height or the current, but it's not going to announce both of them. So I would suggest you pick timings that hardly ever synchronize. So something like height every 19 seconds or 18 seconds to give it a chance to build up a buffer to have made the announcement. Height X meters, X feet, and a little gap so that it then has time to announce the current. Otherwise, if the height announcement overlaps in time, the 60 seconds of the current, then it's just not going to cue the current announcement and make it. Anyway, this can all be done. So you're thinking how? Because if you look in timers, sensors, voice output, there's a repeat there, switch, but there's only a single timing value you can put in. No problem. What we can do is use a combination of sequencers and alarms. Come out of there, go back into that, go to alarms, and for this case I've set an alarm on the battery current, because that's one that was wanted at every 60 seconds, and the altitude was wanted every 20 seconds. So first of all, let's have a look at the battery current alarm. So we've chosen our sensor, which is a Meson controller, battery current. We've enabled the sensor, and normally you'd be quite happy with X is greater than 0 amps, because you want to know the current that's flowing. But if I'm not going to run the motor, the current's going to be 0 amps, so the condition would never arise. So that's why I've set a minus value there, that's all. Or if you want to tell you out 0 amps, so you know you've definitely closed the throttle, set a minus value. But normally 0 would be quite okay there. So as long as the current was greater than 0, i.e. the motor's running, then the alarm can work. There's no file because there's no voice file that you want it to speak out. The activation switch, Q1 here, is going to be sequencer 1. So you go into there and see, you press the plus button, come down to sequencer, and I'm having to choose it as sequencer 1 for this one. Okie doke. Repeat is switched off because you only want it to announce at the moment, and then announce the current value by voice. When it says current there, it doesn't mean current as in amps, it means current as in time. So announce the exact value that's being pulled at the moment. Okie doke. Set throttle to idle, no. Use only during pre-flight check, no. Vibration alarm, off. We don't really need that. So what this alarm is saying is, if the current is greater than -2 amps and the activation switch, i.e. the sequencer, has gone on, then it will announce the current value by voice. So all we have to do is set the sequencer to give the timing that we want. And we do the same thing with the altitude. Pick your vario, enable it. Condition, I've set x is greater than -2 meters because the varios jitter around. If I set it greater than 0, then at some points here sitting on the bench, it's going to just dip to minus values. And so again, that would fail to give a call out because we've set x is greater than 0. So in most cases, you'd be quite happy at the airfield with a condition, again, x is greater than 0. This is just because of bench testing and the jitter. Once again, there's no WAV file that we want it to speak out. In this case, we're going to use sequencer 2 to give it the timings. Again, repeat is off, announce current value by voice. Set the throttle to idle, no. Use only during pre-flight check, no. I don't need a vibration alarm for it. Okay, and you can go on building these up. So you can do it with the vario, but it's just going to override everything. Speak at you non-stop, which you don't want. So let's have a look at setting up the sequencers. Up to advanced properties, sequencers, sequencer 1. Now we're using sequencer 1 for announcing the current, which you want every 60 seconds. And there's several ways you can set it up. I've set it simply as it's off for 30 seconds. At 30 seconds, it briefly switches on, reverses, and comes back for 30 seconds, goes along for 30 seconds. So the first announcement would be after 30 seconds from switching it on, and the next announcement would be at the 60 seconds, the next announcement at 60 seconds, the next announcement at 60 seconds. Okay. However, if you wanted, you could set it at 0.1 of a second to switch on and off, and then run forward for 60 seconds, switch on and off, then run backwards. So that would give you an announcement immediately at switch on, after 60 seconds, and then it comes back and after 60 seconds and so on. So there's various ways of setting these up. I'll show you how we've done this. I've allocated a switch to it, being this switch here, because you don't want these things running all the time necessarily. You want to switch it off. So this will switch on the sequencer. And if we have a look then at time there, let's run along. So we've created a point at time 0, value -100. And we've run along until we get to halfway towards the 60 seconds in this case. So at 29.9 seconds, we bung in another point. You press plus, put -100, so it holds a horizontal line all the way there. And then at 30 seconds, you bung in a point at +100. Okay. Now in advanced, we are not overwriting any channel. The type of path will be symmetrical, so that once it starts, it runs all the way along, gets to the end, and goes back again. And that's why you get 30 seconds that way on, 30 seconds that way, 30 seconds that way on. That gives you your 60 seconds. Cycling is switched on, and that's what causes it just to keep going backwards and forwards rather than just run once and stop. Okay, and that's Q1 set up. Let's come down to Q2. This was the one for the height at 20 seconds, although I suggested we want to cut that down a bit so that they don't have a harmonic, 3 times 20 seconds is 60 seconds and tries to speak over the current announcement. So what we've done here is to set a timing There we go. So at 9 seconds, I've put in the second 0 point, hold it down there, and then at 9.1 seconds, the switch on. Okay. And once again, same things, no overwriting, symmetrical path and cycling. Okay. So as you can see, what I've done is it stays off until it switches on at the end, bounces and just goes back and forwards. So it will take that amount of time, half your interval for the first announcement and then the full interval for every subsequent announcement. But if you want it to make an announcement as soon as you've switched on, just put in a spike up and down right there and then put the full timing in. So the full 20 seconds or full 60 seconds until you spike up again, and then it'll just sit going back and forwards between start and end spikes. Okay, and that's it. So what will happen when we switch these on? If we come out to the timer sensors, alarms, let's have a look at the height, because that's the one that's happening more quickly. Edit that. So there's Q2. So if I switch the switch on, those two sequencers will start running, and you'll see Q2 very briefly change to a tick and back again as the sequencer hits the spike at the end, and it will then satisfy the condition. The height is greater than -2 meters. The activation switch is on. It will announce the current value by voice, and then every 18 seconds or so, 19 seconds, it'll ping again, and then after the first 30 seconds and then after every subsequent 60 seconds, the current will be announced. So here we go. Dum-de-dum-de-dum-de-dum, dum-de-dum-de-dum-dum. Watch that.
6.6 feet.
Dum-de-dum-de-dum-de-dum, dum-de-diddly-doo.
.6 feet. 0 amps.
There we go. Now it was important that the times are out of sequence, otherwise if they'd overlapped, Jeti wouldn't queue them and you'd only get one of those announced.
6.6 feet.
And we'll have to wait a whole minute, 60 seconds from the last amperage announcement to get the next one.
.6 feet.
I'll just show you what we're using here. It is a Nimbus 4 with big hacker motor in the front there, 8S batteries, 6 meter wingspan from the Tangent kit.
6.6 feet.
Most complicated wing I've had. It's got a whopper
0 amps.
8 servos in the wings, if I remember rightly. Is that correct? 3, 4. Might even have
6.6 feet.
No, it's got 10 servos in the wings. There are 4 trailing edge surfaces plus the air brake, so 5 servos in each wing.
.6 feet.
It was jolly easy to program though, because I have to say the Jeti worked with 4 servos, trailing edges in each wing very easily to do all the flapping and mixing of ailerons and flight modes.
6.6 feet.
Piece of wee-wee really. Anyway, there you go. That proves that it can be done. Have fun with that.